do Martin Lewis, Sir Richard Branson, Deborah Meaden, Duncan Bannatyne, Rob Brydon, Dawn French, Bear Grylls, Peter Jones, Lorraine Kelly, Davina McCall, Philip Schofield, Bradley Walsh, Robbie Williams and Holly Willoughby all have in common? Anybody? Beulah? Oh, Martin Lewis has got his hand up. Martin Lewis, what do all these people have in common?
Lovely segue. We are all signatories to a letter today to the Prime Minister asking him to please put scam adverts in the online safety bill. Because what we all have in common is our faces are used by criminals to pay big tech, Facebook, Google, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and others to put fake adverts for diet pills, Bitcoin scams, not the same as Bitcoin, it's a scam, it's not Bitcoin, and various other bogus adverts where scammers can steal your money or your dignity. The UK is in the midst of an epidemic of scams. We have been for about 5 years. People will know this is not the first time I've talked about it. Myself and Richard Branson top the league of the faces most used by scammers in adverts. Scam adverts are not a financial issue. They don't just destroy people's financial lives, they destroy people's lives. They take away people's self-esteem, their dignity, they impact people's mental health. People wrongly blame themselves when they're being scammed. If you lose your retirement fund, £100,000-200,000, and it's common because these scammers are sophisticated, clever, psychologically adept criminals who can bring people in and effectively brainwash them to take away their money, you can't live with yourself afterwards. And some people find it very difficult to live with themselves. Now, the problem we've got is the one name that wasn't in that list, James, because the reason scammers choose people is because people trust them. My big regret is the one name that was not in that list was Boris Johnson, because I have been bashing my head against a brick wall to get the government to do something about scam adverts for years. And it is my great regret that Boris Johnson is not more trusted so that scammers would use him in scam adverts, which means we wouldn't have all the excuses, cowardice and flaccid responses we've had from the governments for regulating scam adverts. And if you forgive me monologuing for a second, I just want to explain what's happening here. We have the online safety bill. The online safety bill is meant to protect people from the actions online, including from poorly regulated big tech. Advertising is a wild west. The government has perversely, and while I support this bit, decided to include user-generated scams within the online safety bill. So if you were to go and post a scam, that would be covered. But they don't include paid-for advertising. The one they're making the money from, for some reason, they're not covering. Now, what's bizarre about this is, first of all, that's like a 1960s regulation when we used to have things written by people and things that were advertising. Online, what's the difference between a user-generated post and one of those that's exactly the same that you pay to promote it? Between a dating profile and a paid romance profile for a romance scam? What is the difference between advertising and user-generated? And here's the big problem. I've been campaigning them to get them to regulate scam ads for years. Now they've not only not included it in the bill, but the bill they have designed by saying we will regulate user-generated scams. The clever commercial criminals who do this are not stupid. Well, if you're going to start being tougher on user-generated scams, what do you start doing? You do more bloody scam adverts, don't you? So this bill is not only not protecting people from scam adverts, it is going to increase the number of scam adverts that are out there. And the government says, well, we'll look at it over the next few years. But every day, there are vulnerable people having their lives destroyed because of scams. It is an absolute sham. Now, I tried writing with Which and the ABI and UK Finance, who represent bankers, and the regulator, the FCA. I sued Facebook, settled out of court for £3 million, which went to charity, of course, not to me, and a scam ads button. But this is still going on. So today it's about star power. That's why I got those other names to send the letters. They're all part of it. We want a reply from Boris Johnson. I mean, the government is flaccid over this. Flaccid is the only word I can come up with. I don't know whether it's scared of big tech. I don't know what's going on.
Well, you're preempting my next question there, and obviously it would be a bit rich of me to deny anybody else the right to a monologue. So do please fill your boots. But the question would be, what you're a very thoughtful man, so you must have given some serious intellectual energy to what you think is motivating the government here, because to hear you explain it, it should be an open and shut case.
It should be. I think there are two things. I think they're worried about mission creep in the online safety bill, but they've included user-generated scams, so it's perverse not to include advertising. They possibly don't want to give Ofcom more to do, but I think this is an absolute priority, and they're blinkered by the Westminster worry about the impact of fake news on democracy rather than the more prosaic but probably more practically damaging impact on people's lives of scams. And then when Nadine Dorries, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, whose department this is in, was asked, she was specifically asked, what do you say to Martin Lewis and the campaign he's running about scam adverts at the Bill Committee, the pre-legislative hearing in Parliament? She said, I would love to include scam ads in the bill, but I have legal advice telling me I can't. Now, myself and Which and the teams we're working with don't know what that legal advice is. We don't know how robust it is. We wrote to her, I'm writing a lot of letters, last week, as saying, well, if you've got legal advice, we would like to work with you. Can we see the legal advice so we can help put you at peace so that you can do what you want and regulate scam adverts? All we have at the moment is legal advice. The thing that's stopping us, James, is legal advice. What that legal advice is, I don't know, but there's legal advice that's saying that we can't do this. So the whole problem, James, is legal advice. But I, who've been working on this for 4.5 years, been campaigning on it, Which, who are huge, got a lot of lawyers working for Which, none of us quite see what the legal barrier is, but legal advice means we can't do it.
It becomes
throwing my key on the table in frustration.
Thank you. We've reached the key throwing stage, lads. This is serious. Just help out the listeners who feel your passion even before you threw the key, and have seen your could I, for example, offer to sell you London Bridge with Martin Lewis's or Richard Branson's face would pop up on Facebook? I have paid Facebook to sell London Bridge to a punter in return for £50,000, and I would at the moment go unregulated and unpunished. Is it as blatant as that?
You couldn't do it on TV.
No.
You couldn't do it on radio because they pre-check. You couldn't do it on a billboard. You couldn't do it in a newspaper. But the thing is, bizarrely, what the argument from big tech is they're not publishers.
Right.
Now, I think I have some sympathy for that, for user-generated content. They're the pub that people go and talk in.
Yeah.
But when you are paying to publish
paying
an advert,
for the space, paying for the platform. Yeah.
You are a publisher, and I believe they should be responsible. Now, what Facebook will say, and after I sued them, they did improve their tech, and there is a scam ad reporting button, and they're no longer the worst, but they're far from good, is they would say we do our best. When I've met these big companies, what they say to me is, well, it's very technologically difficult in order to be able to stop these ads. They don't actually have American accents, but I can't be one, to stop these adverts happening. And my answer is, well, it may well be, but what's that got to do with the price of fish?
Yeah.
Pre-moderate and get a human to moderate. You make many huge tens or hundreds of billions of pounds a year. Simply pay someone, a human being, to moderate your advert beforehand. You cannot hide behind, we can't find a technological solution. Find a manual solution. Pay people, because these scams are blooming obvious. So could you do it? Yes, you could, James. If you did it bluntly, you probably wouldn't get away with it in the first instance, because these scammers are more sophisticated than you, right? And they use slightly more clever techniques. But there's a techie online who posted the other day, and he put up this ad and he showed the code behind it, and he was one with me in, and he was on my side.
Sure.
And he just said, I could have written a program to stop that in under 5 minutes.
Wow.
So this is a resource question. This is an issue of how much do you prioritise resourcing it, and how do we get huge multi-hundred billion pound companies or trillion pound companies to take something more seriously? You make it cost them money if they don't, which is why we're saying put scam adverts in the online safety bill, because it would make them responsible. There's whole other issues, James. The fact is these scammers get away with impunity. This is an unpunished
Has any ever been brought? Have any ever been brought to justice?
A trivial number. It's completely irrelevant. With my day job hat on, money saving expert, I would say if you get fraud, report it to your bank, call Action Fraud. Yeah. Action Fraud, it's a call centre logging agency. They send it on to the police. Fraud is the biggest unpunished crime crime in this country. Very, very little is ever done about it. Nothing is really going to happen. It is the biggest single crime in the country, and it is the least punished crime in the country. It has a real risk to our economy. I wish that big advertisers who are proper advertisers would get on board and say, this is destroying the faith in advertising. You know, your station has advertisers. Imagine if you were allowed to have someone doing fake adverts on your station. They'd soon say, we ain't advertising with you anymore.
Pretending to be you. Pretending to be one of the... And you're too modest to point this out, but you are... Well, no, I think you did, actually. You are one of the most trusted people... In fact, the most trusted person, according to most of the polling in the country. So it's not by accident that your fizzog has popped up on all of these adverts.
Although arguably my ratings are dropping because I get a lot of people very annoyed with me for the scam Bitcoin ads that I see.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you know? How can you know what to trust? And I get to the point where my advice to people is don't trust anything that's an advert online because it's so poorly regulated. And that will be devastating, you know, for many legitimate advertisers who want to use it. I mean, this is a farce, and I just find it so frustrating.
Clearly.
All the government has to do is put it in the online safety bill. At the pre-legislative scrutiny, when I gave evidence there, I mean, all the MPs there were just nodding, and they were nodding. And you sit there and you go, what is it? Tell us what this legal advice is, and then we will work with you. My view is, honestly, shall I tell you what I think it is? I haven't done this before, but I'll be honest with you, because we like to talk. I think what happened is they haven't done a consultation on it. And because they haven't done a consultation on it, even though this issue's been around 5 years and many of us have been asking them to do a consultation on it, they could be challenged to judicial review if they put it in the bill by big tech because they haven't done a consultation. Now,
that'll be the legal advice.
I think that may be, and obviously if they publish the legal advice, what someone like me who's been campaigning and been in meetings with them for 5 years is going to say is, why haven't you done a consultation? Yeah. We've been telling you this for 5 years. This is a massive issue. Why haven't you done the consultation? Or do the consultation really, really quickly? That's my suspicion of what's going on here. So perhaps not publishing the legal advice is trying to hide past ineptitude as opposed to actually trying to be unproductive. But I can only have supposition because all I know is legal advice.
Well, there's one very easy way for the department to prove you wrong, of course, on that supposition.
I am wrong. I hope there is a proper reason, and then we can work out another solution to try and protect people. Because this isn't for me I'm doing it. This is for I've been in tears so many times. I mean, the first person who notified me of this, must be 4.5 years ago, was a man who had lost about 30 grand, and he was an old fella, and he got in touch, and he was very angry, and he wanted me to give him his money back. And when we said, look, this isn't us, it's a scam, and we're so sorry, he said, we said, let us help you. I'm not trusting you. You're a scammer. I sat there with impotence of saying, well, what can I do? I haven't done anything, but I can't help you. And now, you know, there were Facebook published over 1,000 of these ads in a year before I sued. And that's got better, but there's now the email ones out there and all the other platforms, and it's regular. And some of them are vicious. Some of them report my death and other people's deaths as clickbait to get people to read them. And you just think, seriously, you cannot tell me that, because I'm really clear-cut. There's a difference between me and some of the other people out there in these adverts. I don't do adverts.
Yes.
I even stopped doing charity statements that they can promote in tweets now. I'll do them as long as they're not promoted because I think it confuses the issue. And that was the only thing I ever did something before, is talking for charities. So if I'm in a picture in an advert, it's fake. Not real.
It's a scam.
If my name's in an advert, it's not real. So it's pretty easy to stop that, isn't it? Because it's binary. But it still doesn't. It still happens. And the reason is we have no effective regulation. Online advertising is a wild west.
Martin Lewis, I mean, I was going to do a little bit of light-hearted banter about your appearance on Richard Osman's House of Games this week, but I sense the mood is far too serious, and we have run out of time. But you know that there's always an amplifier for you here when you need one. I sense you won't be letting this go anytime soon, and nor the hell should you. Martin Lewis, many thanks indeed.